we care what a cold-blooded killer says? Should his words even be part of our conversation on guns? Or do they shed light on an issue that continues to divide and confuse many Americans? I know it's a tough question and it's uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask it anyway this morning. Talk back question. Does the Dorner case teach us anything about guns? So let's start the conversation now. Joining me are Jason Johnson, Chief Political Correspondent for Politic 365, and Hiram College Political Science Professor, CNN contributor and New York Times op-ed columnist Ross Douthat, and Van Jones, also a CNN contributor and former official in the Obama White House. Welcome to you all.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, we'll start with this very tough topic, and I'll start with you, Jason. Should we care what Dorner has to say about guns?
Yeah, because he says a lot about more than just guns. He tells us a lot about how our urban police departments are working. He tells us a lot about corruption. He tells us a lot about institutionalized racism. His story is the kind of testimony that we need to take a look at how America operates in general. Yes, it's too easy for people to get access to guns. Yes, we don't have enough proper health care, mental health care for people who come back and serve. And yes, we need to do a lot more work within our police departments to make sure corruption does not just permeate everything. So I think this case is very telling and very important.
Yeah, but Ross, this guy was so vile and so evil, it's certainly easy to dismiss any thought he might have had.
Well, I don't think we should dismiss his thoughts out of hand. I think crazy people and evil people can obviously make good points in the course of coming to evil conclusions, but I'm going to go out on a limb and give my liberal friends a lot of credit and say that they can probably come up with better arguments for gun control than the rantings of this guy in his Facebook manifesto. And I also think it's a little bit extraordinary that we're having a conversation like this, and compared to the conversation we had, say, after the Jared Lee Loughner shooting of Gabby Giffords, where in a case where you had a guy who had no political motivations whatsoever, there was this immediate discussion about how this was an indictment of the Tea Party and of Sarah Palin and of right-wing incitement of violence. Now you have a psychotic killer who has published a manifesto that expresses basically left-wing ideas, and the takeaway is supposed to be that we should enact left-wing policy proposals. It just seems like there's a slight double standard in how the media reacts to these kind of rampages.
Okay,
don't you think?
Well, I'd have to kind of agree
You're
with
right.
you,
We'll
Ross.
go to Van.
Let's go to Van. Let's go to Van and let him take this one on.
Well, first of all, I think, you know, we have a family that's grieving right now. It's very hard for me to kind of make the shift away from the death and destruction from yesterday. Those men who were shot, the officer who lost his life, they were doing nothing but their job. They were trying to keep us safe. Those families are shocked and devastated. And if they have any relatives or friends that are watching this, I think they would be a little disturbed to hear us, you know, going on talking about a Facebook manifesto. There are many better spokespersons for the cause of racial justice than this murderer. There are many better spokespersons in Los Angeles who've been working for the reform of that police department through legal and lawful means, and they're not being discussed. And I think we're going down a very dangerous road. I think the people who deserve to be talked about today are the victims of this violence and the legitimate people who have been trying to make positive change in peaceful, lawful ways. I don't want to reference him in any way except for what he was, which is someone who's very disturbed, who, as Ross said, maybe some good points on the way to very, very despicable acts. My heart goes out to the families.
Okay, so Jason, you're the odd man out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think sometimes the sort of extreme behavior of disturbed people, it can be telling. And it doesn't have to be an either or. Just because he identifies the fact that the LA Police Department pretty much works like training day doesn't mean that there aren't local people who also should be given a voice. But I do think when someone has, you know, pre-explained mental difficulties, when someone says, yes, I have problems, when they say that the stress and difficulty and lack of feedback that I get in this position may have influenced me behaving in this way, I do think that's telling. It doesn't make him, you know, the Rosa Parks of gun violence, but I do think his story is telling and the kind of thing that we can learn from. It doesn't have to be an either
Ross,
or.
I would only say one more thing. We always wonder why killers kill. We want to know why. So what's the problem with figuring out what this man's thoughts were and trying to figure out how to stop violent actions like this from happening again?
Now that I agree, I agree with you on that 100%. The only thing I'm saying is to then go and pull his political ideas forward and polish those up. That's where I draw a line. I think it's a question of mental health. As a question of the other issues, that's perfectly fine. But I don't want to validate his political thinking while people are literally planning funerals for
and Ross, button it up.
Right. I would just say that, you know, I'm pro-life, for instance, and there are obviously cases where Americans who are opposed to abortion go nuts, take matters into their own hands, shoot abortion doctors, commit horrible crimes. And I wouldn't think it was appropriate for me to come on CNN after something like that happened and said, well, this just shows that this person was driven to this crime by the evil of abortion. I think Van is absolutely right. In these kind of moments, you know, you want to focus on the victims, you want to condemn the crime, and you want to save the political points the person may have been inspired by for a more appropriate time.
Okay, well, let's turn to our Facebook page because, of course, we care what our friends have to say about this, too. Talkback question again. Does the Dorner case teach us anything about guns? This from Terry. He was just trying to cause more confusion for those of us who enjoy guns, especially law enforcement. Obviously, he cared less about the lives of others. And from Amanda, Dorner has a point about the ease in which a person can obtain a weapon. Gun control laws are just as useful as an umbrella in a monsoon. Please keep the conversation going. Facebook.com/CarolCNN or tweet me at CarolCNN. Still to come on Talkback, should the